So after using a bunch of Steam Deck accessories, I actually only use 6 of them daily, and one of them completely surprised me about how much of a game changer it turned out to be. I'll tell you which one in a minute, plus stick around to the end for some solid honourable mentions. I'll leave links to everything I talk about in the description below, and if you have any questions, please drop a comment and I'll answer every one of them. With that said, let's get into it. So to begin with, I have a pair of headphones. I've always thought that audio is about 50% of the experience, so it's always well worth investing in a decent pair of headphones. In the past, I've tried earbuds and eventually I just find that they fatigue my ears too much and they get uncomfortable after a certain amount of time. So I find that the over-ear headphones are far more comfortable. These are the Bose QC Comfort Ultra headphones, and I went with these because they are super light and comfortable and perfect for long playing sessions. I went on a trip recently from Australia to Ireland, and that's a 24-hour flight, so I had these on for most of the time. They have awesome noise cancelling as well. It's an industry leading level of noise cancelling. There's very few, if any, headphones that are better than these. They are actually so good that I had these on when I was trying to sleep on the plane, and without even playing any media on them, they muffle or cancel out the sound just by wearing them with the noise cancellation on, so they were very handy in that regard. The way I use these is they connect to 2 devices via Bluetooth, and my mobile phone will be one connection and the iPad will be another, and then I connect these via the wire connection to the Steam Deck. I want to avoid any latency there. It also makes it super simple. It'll automatically switch between my phone and my iPad, and then I physically just plug in to the Steam Deck when I want to play any games on the Steam Deck. I also really like the dark blue colorway that these come in. They come in a whole bunch of different colors, but I quite like the dark blue. And so when you're traveling, you can just put them away in their protection case, fold them up like that. Come with this case with the 2 cables that you need at the bottom, the headphone jack and the charging cable. So overall, I think the level of immersiveness that these add and comfort, that they're really versatile and reliable across both Steam Deck gaming and media. These are my favorite pair of headphones. The next accessory that I use daily is this controller. Now this is the Xbox 20th Anniversary Edition controller. I primarily got this because it is a transparent smoke, a lot like the Steam Deck limited edition that I have, so I thought it'd be a good pairing just to have them aesthetically like this. The Xbox controllers, however, do work very well with the majority of PC games, and a lot of them are programmed to specifically work with the button layout of the Xbox controller, so that's always a plus. I use this in a few different ways. So when I'm traveling, I dock the Steam Deck to the TV and we'll put on something like Jackbox, and this will make it easy to control the TV from far away. Aside from that, if I want to put the Steam Deck on a stand and just game with the controller itself, say I want to play a vertical game or something like that, I actually have a 3D printed stand where I'll sit the Steam Deck vertically, and it's handy to have a separate controller because you're using that Steam Deck as the screen. And then I'll also play with my daughter, and we'll play local co-op and just play off the screen of the Steam Deck. I have my controller and she has hers, and we'll play local co-op or multiplayer games together. I mean, you can use any controller, and there are ones that are lighter and smaller than this, but I quite like the comfort level of this. It has some grips on the bottom, looks pretty good. And I like the native support that most of the games have for Xbox controllers, and that's why I chose the Xbox controller as my main Steam Deck controller. The next accessory is probably one that is taken for granted or is probably overlooked, but is I think is one of the most important ones for the Steam Deck, and that is the microSD that you can put into the Steam Deck. Now, a microSD, as you probably know, is a great way of expanding the storage of the Steam Deck without having to upgrade the internal SSD. In the past, I've typically used a couple of these, and for different reasons. So one, I would have an image of Batacera and I would dual boot into the Steam Deck to be able to play retro games in that way. But eventually I gave up on that because it was a bit of a pain switching between the 2 cards and also dual booting the Steam Deck when the Steam Deck itself is perfectly good at emulating retro games. So now I just use this 1 terabyte primarily to store my ROMs and retro games on, and I'll use the Steam Deck internal memory to store the Steam Deck games on it. This way I can have an organized library of games on here, and if I run out of space I can always get another one of these cards
and store maybe some larger CD images or things like that on there. Gives me the peace of mind of being able to load this card up without filling up the internal SSD. This might be an obvious one for some people, but I think it is sometimes overlooked, and I highly recommend getting a microSD for your Steam Deck. 1 terabyte will be more than enough to store plenty on there. You can run Steam games from the card without any issues, but just for organization purposes, I use this only for my ROMs. Next, I have this handy little dock that essentially looks just like a power plug, and it effectively is. So you can just use this as a 45-watt power adapter from USB-C to other devices that support up to 45 watts. The thing about this is it is super small dock. It effectively allows you to plug in the Steam Deck into the USB-C on one side. You can use this with a Nintendo Switch as well. And then you plug the HDMI into your TV and you immediately have a dock that is perfectly good at home and while you're traveling. So you don't have to carry a big bulky dock. I've been using this heaps when traveling, and I use it actually at home here in my regular setup when I plug it into the TV in the games room. You can also plug a USB accessory in here as well, so it has a little bit of flexibility in that regard. Obviously this one has the Australian plug adapter, but you get multiple plug adapters with the Covert Dock, so you just slide the one on that's relevant to you. Again, this happens to be a transparent colored accessory. That's just the way all of the Genki accessories come these days, but it's probably a nice thematic match up with the other translucent stuff. Again, I can't underestimate how handy this dock has been. It's so easy to carry around with me, keeping things charged and being able to plug it into TVs when I'm on the go or at home and capturing footage and that sort of thing. And this is the reason why this is one of my daily accessories that I use for the Steam Deck. Next, I have a power bank. So this is the Shargeek 140 power bank, and I really like the aesthetics of this one. Again, it's a transparent sort of technology which really matches the look of some of the other bits and pieces that I've shown you here. It has a max output of 140 watts. The way that's divided up is that the USB-A has 40 watt output and the USB-C has up to 100 watts output. So that'll pretty much power most devices that are out there, laptops, certainly the Steam Deck at 45 watts, even a Switch 2 at 65 watts. So it's been really flexible in that regard. You hold down the button here and it will actually light up the screen, and on here it just shows you the remaining power and some stats around what the output to your device is, so you can see, and how long it'll take to charge and that sort of thing. I find this really useful for keeping the deck topped up. So during the day, sometimes I haven't plugged it into the wall and I'll find that the deck has drained slowly of battery because it's in standby, and then I can just pick it up without being tethered to the wall, just have this to plug into the deck. It's a good size as well, so if you want to mount it to the back of the deck, it'll fit perfectly fine on the back there. Again, I really liked the look of this one, and because of the size, I thought it matched up very well with the Steam Deck, and the fact that it has this LCD on there is really helpful. You know, this removes that battery anxiety. I don't have to worry as much about the battery life because I know I've got this when I need it the most. Now, the next accessory is the one that surprised me by far the most, and that is the JSAUX ModCase. So just give me a moment here and I'll pop it on and I'll explain why. All right, so here we have the JSAUX ModCase in all its glory with the case on the front. Now, the main reason I didn't want to get any kind of grip or case was because it would hide the aesthetics of the limited edition. So I mostly would use the larger cases where I put it in and take it out. Now I found that carrying it around though, I was always finding that the texture on the Steam Deck was a little bit slippy, so I was always trying to be very careful with it. So the main way I found myself holding the Steam Deck is because I found it like imbalanced when I was holding it with one hand, so I would just hold it on the outside and I wasn't smudging the screen in here, and I was always worried that if I put it down too hard I might scratch or crack the plastic on it. But now when I'm carrying it around, I find that this is super handy because I can just grip the thing like a solid brick, not have to smudge the screen. And then when it's in the bag, it's fully protected because it's covered in the front. And the sticks are not moving around. Now, most of the time I don't actually have the front case on unless I'm sticking it in a bag. So usually I just have it like this. And now the main surprise for me was that I was worried that the case itself would just cover up the limited edition Steam Deck and you wouldn't really know or care that it was a limited edition Steam Deck. And that isn't the case. So you can actually still obviously see the colors on the front here. You still see the transparency here. And when you turn around the back, the case itself is actually a little bit transparent, so you still see through. More importantly, it still highlights the orange accents that are all over the thing. So you can see the grills here, you can see on the top grills here, and you can see the bits on the front. So I would actually argue that with the case on it looks even better because it looks like an armored version of the limited edition with all of the visible colors that you can see on it, and that's what really surprised me. So I've really enjoyed using this case. I find that the grips give you that extra bit of texture so it doesn't feel so soft, so it feels really comfortable and protected. And when you're carrying it around, you can actually grip it around anywhere you feel like and not feel like you're going to damage the thing or you're going to drop it because it's slippy. It's comfortable when you're playing. And the other really cool thing about this case is that it's moddable. So you typically can get different packages with things that you can attach to the back here. So I actually have the stand always attached. You can take that off if you like, if you need to attach something else on there. But I keep this attached all of the time so that I can always just put the Steam Deck like this on a stand. The other thing that I always carry with this is this power bank adapter. So essentially you slide this on and this power bank actually fits inside it really, really well. So you'd put this on the power bank first and then slide it on, obviously, and then you just let that sit on the back like that. So if you want to keep it away neatly, you can just put any sort of power bank on the back of the Steam Deck. Now, there is a community of people out there for the ModCase that have different attachments for this. You can buy it with a power bank as well. So they've made one for this particular setup. You can attach, you know, extra storage and heating and cooling and all that sort of thing. But for me, I'm just quite happy with having the stand at the back and the adapter for the power bank. But, you know, the really cool thing is that you can attach a lot more to it. So I can't say enough good things about this case. I found it really, really useful. I just keep it on all the time now, and I was really, really surprised by this overall. And I like the fact that it gets me over the portability of it when carrying it around in those larger cases. Yes, you can store some extra accessories in them, but most of the time, if I'm putting it in the bag and for travel, I will just stick this on the front and immediately then I know it's protected and I can pop it in there and I can put any other accessories in the bag as well. So highly recommend the JSAUX ModCase. So those were the 6 accessories that I use every day. Now I'm going to move to 2 honorable mentions. The first is actually this keyboard that I've had here on the side all along and mouse setup. So these are the Logitech MX Keys S combos. So you have the MX Keys keyboard and the MX Master 3S mouse. The primary reason I actually use these all the time with the Steam Deck is that when I'm in desktop mode and I use a mouse and keyboard, yes, these have loads of features and are programmable and all the rest of it, but there's only one feature that I really love about these for the Steam Deck, and that is the fact that I can switch between my work PC, my desktop PC, and the Steam Deck just by pushing that button there. And I don't have to get out another keyboard or anything like that. On the mouse, you just switch it between the 3 different options there as well. Now, I do recommend that on the Steam Deck settings, you switch it so that the Steam Deck doesn't wake up by Bluetooth, because you can easily switch between them on the keyboard, but you actually have to cycle through them here. And what I found initially was that my Steam Deck would be somewhere else in the house, and I'd switch between them and it would just turn on and use up the battery before it went back to sleep again. So simple fix is just on the Steam Deck itself for both accessories, just switch wake on Bluetooth off. And that's primarily an issue for the OLED, because that's the version that actually has that feature. The regular LCD Steam Deck doesn't actually wake on Bluetooth. Aside from that, I find it, you know, a comfortable keyboard, nice and quiet. I prefer low profile keys. The mouse itself is really handy for productivity, work, and editing and all that sort of good stuff. But like I said, The reason I give this an honorable mention is because I use it so often, because it's so simple. I just push the third button there and it connects to the Steam Deck without actually having to move around my keyboards or pull out another one. And the second honorable mention, it goes to the Genki ShadowCast Pro. Now this is from the same series or lineup as the Covert Dock 2, but this is a capture setup. I have the smaller capture card as well, but this is the one that I use to capture any sort of footage from the Steam Deck. So my setup actually involves having this plugged into the wall to power the Steam Deck and have it docked. Then I connect the dock to the capture setup here, and this way I can easily plug the deck in and capture any footage I need to for YouTube, and it's been really solid, handy device. It records very high quality, up to 4K 60 capture. And like I said, I primarily use this for capturing tutorials and footage from my Steam Deck. The handy thing with this is that it has a pass-through HDMI, so you'll put the HDMI for capture, but it will pass through HDMI to any screen, so you can have you can game away without it actually having any lag, and it'll still capture on the other HDMI there. This works really well with OBS, so you know, I just set it up with OBS and record on there. Again, don't use this all the time, so that's why it still is an honorable mention, but I highly recommend, if you want a high quality capture setup, you could go a lot worse than the Genki ShadowCast Pro.
So there you have it, the 6 Steam Deck accessories I actually use every day, plus those 2 honorable mentions. Remember that JSAUX ModCase was the one that completely surprised me about how much it improved my daily gaming experience, especially considering I was so against covering up my deck with any kind of case. If this video helped you out or gave you some ideas for improving your deck setup, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button. Don't forget to check the description for links to everything I covered, and drop a comment if you have any questions about these accessories or want to share what your must-have Steam Deck gear is. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.